I am Betty Collins, and this is Inspiring Women, a podcast presented by my company, Brady Ware. This is the podcast that advances women toward economic and social and political achievement. And I, Betty Collins, am here to inspire you today on your journey in life, which includes so many things. This is all about you. I am thankful that you're listening, but more importantly, that you're investing time in yourself. You can find more about inspiring women in this episode on the resources tab at bradyware.com. So today is a great topic, and it's a topic that I really wanted to have a great conversation with a great woman who I've known for some years, and it's all on advocacy. And it's not politics, it's advocacy, although that includes politicians, right? So I'm really fortunate because in Central Ohio is where the government is for Ohio, right? And so you have a little bit more access, a little bit more easier. And so there's a lot more lobbyists here. There's people who you can connect yourself with. But I really didn't know much about advocacy until I was in the National Association of Women Business Owners Columbus chapter, and they are known for advocacy. It's kind of their different characteristics compared to other groups in town. And so I started seeing that, hey, we're going to go talk to this senator, or we're going to try to get to the governor's office, or we're going to do these things because we want to tell our story, or we want to communicate what's important to us. And I really didn't think much about it till in 2019. I was going to become the president of that Columbus chapter in July of 19. So I went to an annual NABO's annual training in DC, but it's also really their advocacy day. So the presidents and the incoming presidents and the past presidents all meet for a day about NABO and training, and then we have a day or so on advocacy. And we actually, in the year that I went in 19, we actually get in these big black SUVs and went in a parade over to the White House grounds. And if you know the White House, you're not walking in the front door, but there's other buildings on that grounds. And we went to the Eisenhower building, and we met with, at that time, the Trump administration officials all morning long. But it was the coolest experience, and it was invigorating because I saw everyday people who wanted to serve their country, not what you see on the news, that want to make noise. These were everyday people that wanted to hear from you. And then from there, we got back in the cars and we got to go over to the Hill, and we met with our different various senators on both sides of the aisle. We met with the National Chamber of Commerce and heard where they were. And it was all geared to women, women-owned businesses, women's capital access, you name it, the topic was there. And the more I was there that day, the more I said, these are some everyday people who want to make a difference, and they're the influencers. And it dawned on me, advocacy is where I want to hang my hat in the rest of my career, as I'm a CPA first, but I really am involved with women groups in town. So today, I want to talk about a very, very amazing organization called the Ohio Women's Coalition. And the executive director, it's the first executive director, she's going to tell the story of this, but it's Rachel Winder. And she has an amazing story. I'm going to let her talk first about what she does she's like me. She has an everyday living, and then she really advocates for women. So Rachel, welcome today. And just give us, tell us a little bit about you, the law firm you work with, and what what your passion is.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's
Yes.
great to be here. So as Betty said, I'm Rachel Winder. I'm a lobbyist by trade. It's not a dirty word. We do a lot of important work.
It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And I've spent the last 30 years working in and around the State House, for various entities. And I came to Benish Law, which is where I am now, in 2013. And I started my own practice inside. It's not a legal practice, it's a government relations practice. And I was so lucky to have been introduced to the National Association of Women Business Owners early on in my trajectory at Benish, maybe in 2014, end of 13, 14. And I was fortunate enough to become their public policy advisor. So, and their first public policy advisor. And they, including Betty, they are filled with really passionate women that understood that they needed a bigger voice.
Right.
And I learned a lot through that experience. I'm not even sure we knew, and maybe we still don't even know exactly what we need, but we knew we needed more.
Right. Right.
Whatever that was. And so we just started, picking away at things that, were lacking when it came to women-owned businesses and public policy. And it sort of has become my passion to examine and figure out the intersection of public policy and women-owned businesses.
Correct.
So NAWBO Columbus, they accomplished a lot. We did a lot with the issues that they wanted to tackle, and one was we created a definite. Mary McCarthy brought it to us, and she said we need a definition of a microbusiness. Because a small business is defined as anywhere to 400 to 500 employees, and
that's the very small number of companies in the country have that many employees. It's just not. That's not a representation.
It's not a true representation, and especially for women-owned businesses, a lot of our the members of NAWBO and others were solopreneurs.
Right. Right.
So we created a definition of a microbusiness in the Ohio Revised Code, and it means a company that has fewer than 20 employees, which is just close to the majority of businesses in the state of Ohio.
See it all the time.
97% of all businesses have are micro businesses, and so now we have that definition in the Revised Code, and we can steer programs that way that are there to benefit micro businesses, our size businesses.
Right.
And then we created this amazing program, the Women's Business Enterprise Certification Program in Ohio. And the goal of that program really is just to increase contracts to women-owned businesses, not just government contracts, but private businesses. And so we created this certification program, and it was brought to us by some great NAWBO employees, Mary Korn and Sean Skinner and Jeannie Gochin, all the names that I know and
Yep.
They're so passionate, and they were experiencing an issue because they wanted to compete for contracts in other states.
Right.
So Indiana is an example. They went to Indiana. They have a really robust Women Business Enterprise Certification Program, which means they steer contracts specifically to WBEs. And our friends, Sean and Jeannie and Mary and others, wanted to be certified by that program so they could compete fairly with other women-owned businesses that were certified. And they were told, you can't be certified in Indiana, you have to be certified in your home state. Well, Ohio doesn't have a certification program, so there's absolutely no way that we can compete fairly with these other women-owned businesses in those states without a program, so we put one in place.
Right.
Nobody said we could.
Right, but we did.
It's one of our proudest,
Yes.
It is one of our proudest accomplishments. And now we have this WBE program in Ohio, and I'll talk a little bit more about sort of what that's meant for Ohio. But so through my experience with NAWBO, I just learned that women needed so much more.
Right. And hopefully you in the audience will think, well, I'm not certified. Well, I don't want to get certified. I don't need to be certified, or this doesn't apply to me. If you understand two things from this today, is that there's a lot of issues that still need advocated for women and women-owned businesses. We focus mostly in the business area, but access to capital is one of the crucial things. And so you would be surprised. So don't shut your mind down, but knowing who your representation is, and especially the environment we're in right now, is crucial. And so I've watched and worked along the side of Rachel, and I wanted to talk about something really that I'm totally passionate about, which is this Ohio Women's Coalition. So one day I get a call from Rachel, and she said, we have this thing going on called COVID, and it's March of 2020, and guess what? So I'm going to let her go into it a little bit more, but tell us a little bit about the Ohio Women's Coalition, because it is the hottest thing in Ohio, women. So if you're not a member or you don't know what it is, we want to make sure you do today. So tell us about it.
Oh, I'd love to. So the Ohio Women's Coalition started out very organically back in March of 2020. The middle of COVID had just started, and those of you who are in Ohio, it was right during the time when Governor DeWine and Amy Acton were, Dr. Acton from the Department of Health were coming on our televisions every day at 2:00 and talking about everything that was happening with COVID, and after they shut the economy down. And they created this advisory council, or a panel of businesses they called the Economic Recovery Advisory Council, which was, businesses from across the state. Well, I was the public policy advisor for NABO at the time, and we got a call from some other amazing women's organizations around Columbus and around the state, and they were concerned that this advisory organization did not have enough representation of women, did not have enough representation of minorities, and did not have a single micro business on the panel. And these are the people that are making decisions on how we're going to open back up the economy in Ohio.
Because it was just going to be a couple of weeks.
It was just going to be. That's right. They're getting ready to open it up back in April, early April of 2020. And so all these women's organizations across Ohio were going to join together and write a letter, either to the governor or to the media or to the editor, just expressing their concern about why this organization, why this advisory committee was not representative. And they came to NABO Columbus and they said, will you sign on to this? And leadership at NABO Columbus, was that were you?
That was myself and Michelle Casper at that time.
Yeah. So you and others, brought it to me and said, is this something that we should sign on to? And I read it and I looked at it and I know the governor, and I know he's doing the best that he can do, and I know that he's focused on trying to put this back together. And I said, let's just see if we can get a seat at the table. Maybe we can find a spot for us, or maybe we can talk with his office and make sure that they are considering our thoughts. And so I suggested that, give me an opportunity to reach out to the governor's office and see if we can get somebody to talk with us.
Right.
Lo and behold, Zoom, I think I'd maybe been on one Zoom call in my life.
All of us had only been on one Zoom call, so we get it.
So we were able to get the governor's advisor to this Economic Advisory Committee and all of these women's organizations, which in my mind was the coolest part of this. Forget the governor's office. This was so cool that we had all of these women's organizations. We're talking NABO Columbus, NABO Cleveland, the Women's Fund, WELD,
the WSBA,
the Dress for Success, the Asian Pacific, SCORE, Thrive. I mean, all of these people on this call, and the governor's office. He was great. He listened to us. He maybe got off after 30 minutes or so, and the rest of us stayed on. Yes. And we just talked about the issues that we're dealing with and what we're, and it was just really inspiring. Yes. And so we all agreed, let's do it again. Let's do it again next week.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, well, let's invite somebody else. Let's have a guest, but also continue talking amongst ourselves. So we called, and I think the next week we had a woman who was sitting on that advisory committee up in the Cleveland area, and we got her to join our call and talked with her about what her experience is like, and if she could help make sure that our voices are being heard. And then we had another great conversation. Right. And the following week, I invited a staffer from the Department of Development. And they instead bumped it up to the director. And they said the director would want to be on this call. Yeah. And instead we got, so I always joke, I usually get, bumped down.
Right. You got bumped up to the top.
I got bumped up to the top because this is an audience that they want to talk with.
Right.
So it sort of worked both ways. So long story short, we incorporated and we became the Ohio Women's Coalition. And Betty, as you know, didn't hesitate to jump on our board.
Nope, absolutely. By the way, I'm the treasurer. Imagine that. I'm a CPA.
She's the treasurer, poor thing. So we got great financial advice.
But what the audience needs to hear of what she just talked about was she saw something geared to women business owners. It triggered something within her that said, and even though she knows the governor, not all of us do, obviously, something triggered her to go, we have to do something. We're in that environment a lot today, but you got to do something in a way that works, right? You got to have a voice that people can hear so that then they can listen. And that was the lesson I learned in the early days. We were nothing more than every Friday at 11 o'clock, And there were sometimes there might have been 75 to 100 women. Hopefully I'm not inflating that, but it was like, this is what I'm going through. This is what we need. And the traction of this group took to new levels. So then we were like, okay, COVID's not over. It's not going to be over. It's lasting much longer than we all thought, right? And we said, what do we want to do? Which is that. And I was the one who said, well, we're just a coalition of voices. And then we started thinking, how do we do that? But why did it become Ohio? Let's go that. It's not just the Columbus area. Why did we go Ohio?
Well, so, we had a lot of success with NABO Columbus, and you had said it's a local chapter, right? But we created a statewide program, the WBE, that's for the entire state of Ohio. But what I was learning when I was talking to legislators, and we were having legislative events, and we were advocating and lobbying, legislators are asking, do you have my constituents in your organization? Are my constituents going to be at your legislative event? And I was like, only if you're in Columbus, because we're the Columbus chapter and those are our members.
Right.
But the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House are both from Lima, Ohio. They want to hear from their constituents. So where are the women businesses in Lima? And the chairman of the Finance Committee in the Senate is from Cleveland, Ohio, and the chairman of the House Finance Committee is from Akron, and they need to hear from their constituents. And I knew we needed a statewide voice, and this just became an opportunity to be able to have the voices from every corner of the state.
And that's what also, again, when you're thinking about, I don't know my senator, I don't know my rep, and yet we have people in Cleveland who are in powerful positions, or in what you said, in Lima. It's not just Columbus. So making sure that you're at these table with influencers and is crucial. It's just important, and that's why I'm all in with the Ohio Women's Coalition, because we're just everyday people trying to get little things done. Because one thing we saw during COVID, and I don't want this to be a COVID topic, but everybody had access to PPP. If you were an employer and you had employees, there was no, how long have you been in business? We need all your tax returns for 3 years, and we need this, and we need this, and it was, how can we help you? And how can we empower you? And so we wanted to take that concept absolutely along with the Ohio Women's Coalition. So when you look at this, you're trying to have an intersection of policy and then the success of women business owners and pulling that all together. What have you helped accomplish for women business owners in Ohio so far? The coalition. What have we done?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, we've had a lot of success. We've more to do, but I mentioned the micro business definition. I mentioned the WBE, which we created. But what was so crazy is the OWC. We started informally having these calls every Friday, and one of our calls we invited the governor's chief of staff. And, and I ask our members and everyone on the calls, what do you need? What do you want? Access to capital, access to capital, access to capital. We don't need a lot. We need $5,000. It would change our businesses, but we can't get it because we haven't been in business long enough, and they only really, all these different reasons why it's just so hard to obtain. So we talked to the governor's office, and she invited the director of development back on our call again, and the two of them just listened to us. Two wonderful women, by the way.
Right. That's Governor DeWine.
Yes, he does. He's got a great cabinet full of women. So they listened, they understood, they heard us. And out of, the budget of the state of Ohio, it's $40+ billion, was introduced maybe January, February of 2021. And it included two $10 million loan funds, one just for women-owned businesses and one for minority and women microloans. Right. $20 million. It's crazy, that was part of the statute. We immediately went to work. We started, we testified in committee. We had the most pieces of written testimony of any issue in the committee that day. I testified in person, and we fought to keep those dollars in the budget, and they stayed. And we have these loan programs now in the state of Ohio, first ever. Right. In the history of the state of Ohio, where women-owned businesses were even mentioned in the Ohio Revised Code.
Right. I mean, I hope you heard that first ever mentioned. I mean, that's amazing to me. But when we got, and I honestly, I thought we'll never get 10 million over 2 years, or we'll never. And it was like, wow. And you know what? The key was we asked.
Yeah.
And not only did we ask, we were ready to ask. And and you were, you got enough people around you. Again, the influencers, that's who you needed to ask, and we did it. And so if you're a women-owned business and you're not asking and you're not pushing with data and with all of the things that you're probably not going to get anything if you don't, right? So when we got the 20 million, or I should say really Rachel in the Ohio Women's Ohio Women Coalition, there was a lot of people that were involved with that. They just all did the part that they could. We then said, we've got 20 million reasons to tell our story. And so we became, but we're known in Ohio, especially it's a known, maybe not to the general public as much, but it certainly is within the influencer groups. So what other things, though? I know you have a minority financing advisory board. Let's go through some of those things that has really been impactful.
So, we mentioned the WBE that was created, and we're starting to see these ancillary impacts from the work that we're doing. That is like, it literally, these kinds of things give me chills.
Right.
But there is, because this loan program is becoming so popular, and women businesses are stepping up to the table, and they're asking, and they're getting these loans. They've given away, I have it here somewhere, they've given away almost 5 million so far. And we've got another, 15 million to go. So get your loans, get your loan applications in.
Yes.
But part of the process with the loans is the very last thing that you do is you go before this organization called the Minority Financing Advisory Board, and it has members appointed, I believe, by just the Department of Development, Director of Department of Development. They might have some governor appointments, but they all have to give a thumbs up and sign off to the money that's being,
Which, good. That's good accountability. That's all good.
Right. You like that.
Yes.
And I started attending these meetings because I want to see what's happening with these dollars that we advocated for. I want to know what they're doing with them. And I look around the table, and it's all men,
right?
Which is fine. I mean, it's fine, and they're all very diverse, right? But they're giving away. They're interviewing these women in these women-owned businesses. Where are the women?
Right.
And so what's happened is they've recognized it, that they need to be more diverse. Obviously, they need women businesses on this. They
do.
And so they have a gentleman who's stepping aside to make room.
Very good.
So they're literally making room at the table for women-owned businesses, like we talk about in a, sort of a imagined way. And here it is, happening.
Right.
And there's another open seat that they're making sure is filled, but so they're making room for us. So that's just been amazing. The other thing that we learned recently is the WBE program is only a year old. We passed the bill maybe at the end of 2020, and then they had to write the rules, and they had to go into, and it went into effect, and it's not even been around for that long. There are nearly as many women-owned businesses or women certified as women business enterprises as minority business enterprises, which is so interesting to me because the MBE program has been around for 40 years.
Wow.
We're 100 businesses off from having the same number as they do, which is just incredible to me. Like, why have we not had a voice before?
Right.
So that's crazy to me. And again, we want to lift everybody up. We're not competing with anybody. We just want equality, in everything that is happening at the state level, public policy, and everywhere else.
Absolutely. And, when I look at what my mom, my mom was a very, she was interesting because she was your typical, I got married when I was 18, 19, and we had kids, and my dad was the patriarch. He was till they were 85, till he died when he was 83. And she sat my sister and I down, when we were teenagers, saying, you're not going to do this. Now, today she's like, this has just gone too far. But in her mind, she got her daughters to be educated and independent. I'm still going, we still have things, because you can't believe that men aren't bad. are making decisions
Some of
on
them are good.
right. But they're making decisions on women-owned businesses, and it's like, where is so we just still have things to advocate for. That's my point. We still have to push these things. But if you don't ask, it won't get done. And if you don't say, I want to be at that table, you will never be there.
Yeah.
You just won't.
I just want to mention one other thing that adds to my chills. You know, so we just learned from the Department of Development that they have asked every agency in the state to predict how many contracts will be going to women-owned businesses for the first time in the history of Ohio. So now every single state agency that contracts for anything, and you'd be surprised at how many things they contract with. The prisons contract with yoga instructors.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunity out there for folks that don't think they might want to look into being certified or work with contracts. But so every single state agency now has to make a deliberate choice of writing down the number of contracts that they expect to go to women businesses. So it's no longer an afterthought. It's a deliberate, idea of where these contracts should go.
And that's the success of Indiana. So when you look at a state like Indiana, they have benchmarking, which everyone always kind of hates, benchmarking and maybe affirmative action type things. But it's like, if you don't start there, it's all just really good rhetoric, So there has to be some accountability to it, that, hey, this is something that we have to achieve. So that's in my mind, is a great start. It's a great start. Hey, we're asking the question, are we making sure we're doing that?
Yeah.
And that is chilling. I mean, that definitely is. So, and what's interesting about Ohio Women's Coalition, I do want to make this clear, it's very bipartisan. Because I don't really, I'm a kind of a conservative by nature in many respects. So I'm kind of sometimes the outlier in the room. But I don't care if I'm with an independent or a liberal or a moderate Democrat or a right winger or whatever you want to call everybody. If they understand the passion behind the Ohio Women's Coalition, we want them to hear us. We want to have our voice with them, because you just never know who's going to be the one that influencer is going to go, I might be over here or I might be over here, but I get it.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. And so we are very bipartisan. I want to make sure people understand that. But you've accomplished a lot. I mean, it's really amazing what you, the board, and how our members are growing. Our sponsors are stepping up. But what's next? What's next for the OWC? What do we got coming?
Oh, goodness.
Because you can't top that year, I think, but I shouldn't say that.
I don't know.
Need to top that year.
Well, so we have to protect our $20 million. We have a budget every 2 years. We got to make sure that, and maybe it should be more.
Well, I want to put this out there. The Ohio Women's Coalition is in its infancy stage and has accomplished this much. It's in a very infancy stage for a nonprofit. So to go and say, we influenced and got $20 million in a budget for a state in like year one, maybe a little bit.
Right.
I mean, you're like, wow. So what's next?
Yeah, and by the way, because we're in our infancy, we're growing. We need members. We need board members. So if you're listening to this and you want to be a part of it, you can help us figure this out, because we're still young, very very young. We're
any
growing.
treasurers out there? Any CPAs out there? I'll move over to something else.
Yeah, sure. Well, we have a great treasurer. So what's next? You talked about like metrics in Indiana, right? So they're sometimes referred to as like set-asides or goals, right? So they set aside a certain percentage of contracts, and those set-asides go to whatever preference program, whether it's minorities or women, and then there's goals, right? Which is it's not a mandatory, but agencies need to aspire,
right,
to hit a number of those many contracts going to women businesses. And in Ohio, we have 4 different preference programs. We have a minority business enterprise program that has a 15% set aside. So 15% of contracts go to minority certified companies. We have an EDGE certification, which is economically disadvantaged companies. If you get certified there, there's a 5% goal. So agencies, try to aspire to give 5% of their contracts. And it can be a subcontract too. You can be a sub on a prime contract. So 5% goal. Veteran Business Enterprise Certification certified companies have an extra point. So when they put a bid in on their score, they get 1 extra point if they're a certified veteran. And then the WBE, the women's business, they have nothing. So we don't have a goal, we don't have a set aside, we don't have a point.
But all these other things do.
All these other things do, right?
Yeah.
So we do know that the whole system needs to maybe be revamped and looked at. So that's certainly something that we're advocating. We're talking to the powers that be about that that doesn't really work. Maybe we need to take a step back, have an umbrella type program where everybody fits under it, or something that makes sense. But before you even know what it should look like, you need to understand the data. And so, and you need something in place called a disparity study. And that has to be a statewide, state-sponsored study that courts can use if these programs ever get challenged. So if you're a minority or a women business and you win a contract and somebody who lost the contract is upset about it, files a lawsuit over these programs, you need that disparity study to defend yourself, and there hasn't been. The state of Ohio does, and there hasn't been one done. I couldn't find one, actually. I did research. It's at least 20, I think more like 30 or 40 years that one has been done, if it's ever been done. So we are advocating for the state to fund a statewide disparity study.
And what would be in that for anyone who maybe they don't know what, I never understood the power of data until I have been involved with this. So what would be in a disparity study?
So, I don't know if I'm sure you recall, we met with Governor DeWine. A bunch of us sat around the table. We met with Governor DeWine, and we said to him at the time, hey, we need goals for women-owned businesses. We need to require your agencies to give us contracts. And he goes, how do I know that you have the capacity in the state to, respond to, I'm going to put an arbitrary number on my agencies and tell them that they have to hire these, but I don't even know if we have these specific businesses that are owned by women. So how do we... And so that's what you'll find out, like you'll find out not only how has the state been doing in the way that they contract, are they contracting fairly, equally, or is there, a disparity, a proven disparity with using data. The city of Columbus just did one. They found that there were disparities. They found that there were underutilized companies, and they found in some instances there were not disparities. So that's what we hope to learn, but on a statewide basis. And then also the capacity of the companies in the state. And then they will have recommendations on how to even out, whatever they find, and maybe, maybe we're doing great. I doubt it, but maybe.
But we don't know.
And so even legislators that are, by nature do not support these preference programs, and I understand it. It's certainly not. They're terrible. To get certified is a burden, So that's hard. Something else we're doing is trying to ease that certification process so it's more streamlined. But we just want to see what's out there, and we want recommendations put in place by utilizing the data so we can just change the way that things are done in Ohio for the better.
And studies make so much sense. Like with NABO, there's a person, she owns Measurement Resources, Sherry Cheney Jones. And she's great because she can come up with not just it's not fair. It's like, by the way, here are how many women-owned businesses owners we have. Here's how many are under this revenues. Here's how women are paid versus, because she's gone out and she's gotten real data. And again, when you put that in front of your influencer, it's huge. So a disparity study would be great. What other things do you feel like you're gonna, what's next? What's on the agenda?
Oh, well, so we're starting to, we talk about government contracts a lot, but the private industry, the private sector, also these, especially the larger businesses, they contract all the time too. And supplier diversity is the huge buzzword of the day, right? And these companies a lot of times don't know where to find where are these diverse suppliers, right? So we've recognized that the Ohio Women's Coalition is an opportunity for suppliers to get in front of hundreds of women businesses who want to work for these companies, hundreds of WBEs in the state. So as an example, we have a guest coming at the end of June. I don't know when this is going to be heard. The end of June, June 17th or so. If it's already passed, you call us, we'll tell you about it.
Okay.
But the National Supplier Diversity Director from Intel is going to be joining the Ohio Women's Coalition, and they have $500 million set aside for women-owned businesses. Wow. So we're going to talk with the head of that initiative. And she's going to tell if she was excited to get in front of us. So we'll learn about that. And we also have some interest from Ohio Health, and we have some interest from Wright State. And so we're trying to be a connector for these women and the supplier diversity folks. And then I mentioned, we got to replenish the loan program, and we got to streamline the WBE certification process and all the certification processes. So those are a few things.
People do get really wrapped up in, the certification, all the paperwork, and I got to hire a consultant to get it because I keep getting denied, or they keep sending it back. And so that streamlining would be huge. But we got to keep the budget now going. But that's exciting about meeting with Intel. Again, we just, Rachel was really triggered by a committee that she saw that was not representing the business community, which is a lot of women-owned businesses are the ones who keep starting them. And so now here we are. We're going to be in front of this large change to the region called Intel.
Yeah.
And we're going to be at the table.
Yeah.
It just started out with, we got to make a difference. But you also have to make a difference. You got to be prepared. Nothing is easy, but you can make it easier. I mean, that's, so in the certification process, for me, I am a shareholder at Brady Ware, but I don't have enough, there's 21 of us, so it doesn't really apply to me, right? I mean, it can in some ways, but for you that are in the audience going, that's not me, And we're not advocating. There's so many women's issues we could be advocating for, by the way, that we said we're going to narrow this and keep it focused. But maybe one day, you'll have a staff of 20 and we'll get to do all this, right?
Someday. Well, just real quick, you just reminded me that the WBE, these loan programs they put in place, they put the parameters around, what you have to do in order to be eligible for the loans. And they're requiring in the microloan program that you are WBE or MBE certified.
Right.
So even if you don't do government contracting, you can get access to these, 3% loans.
Yeah.
And then the WBE loan program, which is a larger loan program, they're not requiring that you're certified, and so if you're not certified, and you do win a loan, or was that the word win?
Yeah, win. Yeah, you've won the lottery. Yeah, no, you get the loan.
If you get the loan, if you're eligible for the loan, it's a 3% interest rate. But if you are WBE certified, it's a 1.5% interest rate. Right. And I said 3% on the MBE. It's not. I'm sorry. It's 0% on the microloans. So these are the loans that we've created. That we're going to replenish in this next budget.
Right. So what I would tell you is get educated about what these things mean instead of making an assumption this doesn't apply to me. I mean, really dive in. And as women in this audience and key women in management or players in organizations, or you own your own business, this is the moment to grab. Yeah. Right. Oh, and the OWC. So tell us your 5 and 10 year plan, and hey, you're going to retire as the executive director of the Ohio Women's Coalition, right?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't, when I think ahead 5 to 10 years, I honestly, I think there's just no stopping us. We just need to grow. Where are we going to be in 5 to 10 years? I look at us like I want to be, like an Ohio Chamber or like a NFIB, which is the National Federation of Independent Businesses. I want to be big and powerful, and I want people to continue to listen to us, and I want people. So what we just need support. We need members, we need sponsors, we need people who are passionate about what we're doing. It's really cheap to be a member. We tried to make it affordable. It's $100, $125, I think, for the year. Right. We really tried to make it affordable, but we want lots of you to come join with us.
One of the things why the coalition took off so much was those Friday calls had, 50, 70, 100 people on them. And your influence, your senators, your representatives, your directors in the government, the governor's office, they saw the power in number. They're like, this is like a lot of people. Right. So, okay. So that's a reason to really join. And you also are supporting other women business owners, and we're not going to get you with all these fees and we're going to be really reasonable in how we're going to get you involved. So why though, beyond the influencers and we're making change, and we had an amazing basically about 18 months, 2 years, and made so much progress. I can see 5 to 10 years you're accomplishing this, right? But what other reasons would you support or join the OWC beyond that? I mean, I love the camaraderie of it all, I can tell you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is great. Some of my favorite moments were when our special guest, and we've had the lieutenant governor, we've had the secretary of state twice, we've had director of development a couple times. Our legislators, we've had the editor of the Dispatch joined us. I mean, we're bringing these amazing people to the table, so you get the sort of a firsthand view of of these folks and what they do, and you sort of have a front row seat. I mean,
Right.
and we do Zoom just to make it convenient. We've done a couple of in-person events. We have a great event coming up. I
Yes,
think
tell
we're
them
gonna
all
talk
about this.
Okay.
This is why you joined, because this is real stuff.
So, Betty is passionate about advocacy, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We are an advocacy organization. That's why we exist. We're not necessarily a networking organization, but you need to network with your legislators. You need to
Right.
network with the influencers and the people, and you need to know them. So when you need to ask for something, you already know them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the upcoming Women's Leadership Conference, which Brady Ware is helping to sponsor along with the WSBA and I think the Better Business Bureau.
The Better Business Bureau, yes. Yeah. We started this conference, Brady Ware started this conference in 2014, and so this is our 9th year. And what I wanted to do this year was include a lot more advocacy with it. Because last year we were virtual, which was not my preference, but we still had 164 people register, and we had 102 to 110 people were there on it all day. But at noon, Governor DeWine came in and zoomed in. Yeah. And people, you don't have to like him. You can love him. I mean, but it was the governor of Ohio was there. And so we're going to have some really cool stuff throughout the day at this conference on June 24th. You really definitely want to check it out. It's on Brady Ware's website, but it's the Women's Leadership Conference. And so tell us about what your firm is a sponsor.
Yes.
And we're going to have some fun advocacy. I know we can't tell who's going to be there yet because a lot of times they can't commit till it gets out, but tell us a little bit about how advocacy in your firm is going to play a role in it.
Oh, well, we have some invitations out to some high-level folks. We did get confirmation that the director of the Department of Development, Lydia Mihalik, is going to be speaking to us at lunch, which is amazing. And she is the person, she just inherited all of these preference programs. So she's trying to learn about them, and she's in a position to change them, you know. And so she's really passionate about what we're doing. She also controls the loans. I mean, it's her agency that's giving out. So she is, and she's the one who's asking other agencies, how many contracts are you going to give to women businesses? So she is just a huge supporter. When I sent her an email when I saw these dollars in the budget, and I said, oh my gosh, thank you. Yes. And she responded to me with one sentence, we heard you. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, wow, advocacy really does matter. So Lydia's going to be there. And then at the end of the day, we're going to have a really fun, relaxing reception right in the hotel, the same area. Mm-hmm. And we're inviting policymakers and public officials and candidates. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be in the room mingling with folks that are going to be making decisions about, things that impact you on a daily basis, not just in your business, but your personal and wherever. And so we're really excited about that. It's important, and that's going to be, I think, 3:30 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So the conference is an all-day conference, but if you just can only come to advocacy, you can come. The only downside is you have to pay for your own drinks and the cocktails. If you attend the conference, we have 5 women who have stepped up right now to pay for the cocktails for that hour and a half. It'll go 3:30 to 5, but we're going to have players in the room. So why wouldn't you want to be there, right? Why wouldn't you want to come to it? But last year, Rachel was so supportive in her company. Benish was so supportive in sponsoring this, and they're doing it again this year. And then this year, we're going to bring a lot more players. And we have some other surprises, maybe, hopefully, for that, but that will be there that day. But it was really, really, it's going to be impactful, so you want to be there.
Let me just tell you that Mary McCarthy and Betty Collins know how to put on a conference. They know how to put you will leave inspired. You will be interested throughout the entire day. There's actually too much on the agenda. I want to do more than the time even allows for us to do.
Right.
But they're always great.
Because we'll kick off with a really great breakfast speaker. She just wrote a book. It's doing really well on Amazon, and then we'll have a national speaker, Cindy Solomon, at lunch. We'll have 15 breakout sessions, so you can choose through the day. There's exhibitor tables if you even want to do that. And in 2019, we had probably, I'm going to say, 250 people there all day, and we had another 70, probably 50 to 70 for lunch. I mean, it's well attended. To have 2020 where I had to just cancel it, it wasn't appropriate with health and everything and the uncertainty of that time. And then for 21 to still have that many people, because we just had great speakers.
Yeah.
So at the end of this podcast, we'll get you actually where you can register and be a part of it. So make no mistake about Benish Law, Rachel Winder. We're going to have really good influencers in the room throughout the day, and you don't want to miss that part of it. But I really appreciate you coming on today. And if you want to know more about the Ohio Women's Coalition and yourself, where can the audience find you?
So definitely check out our website. It's www.ohiowomen'scoalition, all one word, .org. ORG. And I actually, Betty, you'll be proud of me. I've upgraded the website. I've been
Hallelujah.
figured out how to do that.
Yes.
We're still in our infancy. We also need some website design. If you do website design, check us out.
Yep.
But www.ohiowomen'scoalition.org. Please join us if you can. And all my contact information is on there, including my cell phone. Call me.
Yep.
I'd love to talk with you. Join us.
If you want to talk more about some of these topics, whether, it be certification or how do I get involved with these loans or those, the OWC is going to be able to give you that. They're going to be able to give that information. So today we didn't talk about politics, and we tried not to talk about COVID as little as possible, but we did talk about the importance of influencing, and Ohio Women Coalition is doing that. And we as women, whether we're in business or we're not, or we're key players, or we just want to help women. We want to help further things along and empowerment. Make sure you're in the right room with the right people. Ohio WWC is what we call the Ohio Women's Coalition can get you there. But I appreciate you listening today, and I appreciate that I have this opportunity to hopefully inspire you in some manner. And this is Betty Collins. Have a great day. As your career advancements continue, your financial opportunities will grow. You need to be prepared. And you can do that by going to our website, bradyware.com, to find out more about us and the accounting services that we provide. All this and more about the podcast can be found in the episode show notes.